What's going on, guys? This is Jimmy.
Hey guys, Rachel here.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. We are so excited to have you guys with us again today. As usual, we do not take it for granted that you guys have taken out this hour of your Sunday to spend with us, and we are praying that God will bless where you can get something out of this broadcast. And so, guys, we do want you all to share. We want you to, reach out to some friends and say, hey, guys, log in. Jimmy and Rachel with RRT is on live right now.
Yes, tell them we have some great conversations. We are all just so blessed by one another's input, not just us to you guys, but you guys as you contribute in whether it be likes, loves, comments. Some of you just keep the fun going with just your fun comments that may have nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Carla.
But it just keeps us going. So we do thank you so much. We are at our 6th episode of this third series. And in this third series, we've been kind of focusing on, Jimmy and I are focusing on you guys kind of getting to know us, but in getting to know us a little bit more, we are also using that as an opportunity to hit some really great topics as it relates to individuals personally. So sometimes when you can see the personal side of individuals, or you see us as human beings, not just as people who are here every Sunday giving advice, it kind of lets you understand things a little bit better. So we've enjoyed that. As you can see, the topic for today, wait, let me back up. He asked you to share, but I don't think we took a pause for that.
No, we didn't.
So here is the prompt. Think about people in your life who you're close with that you know they're in toxic relationships. Or you know someone that knows someone that's in a toxic relationship that could benefit from this. Just because you're listening to the show doesn't mean we think you're in a toxic relationship, or anything of that nature. However, knowledge is power, and knowledge can help you get out of something that you don't really need to be in, or at least have the tools to navigate through those waters. So think of at least 3 people. You can, of course, share with more. But think of 3 people that could benefit from this conversation and share. And if you want to rep your city, go right ahead. We always love you to rep where you listen to us from. We would love for you to do that. Were you about to say something?
No, I was just going to say knowledge is power when it's applied.
When it's applied.
Knowledge applied is power.
Definitely.
Amen.
There definitely has to be the application piece. And it's a shame nowadays that part even has to be said, because what's the purpose of knowledge if you're not going to do anything with it,
there
right?
You go.
But definitely it should be applied. So the question is, how do you know if you're in a toxic relationship? And when you think about toxic, it's a form of the word toxin. And when I was thinking about toxins, especially as a science teacher, toxins are things that can harm or kill. They're very dangerous to us. And when you think about a toxic relationship, I think sometimes that is the most covert form of poison that can take place in a relationship, because it doesn't always appear that it's not good for you, especially if you have good times. You tend to use that as a justification, or you rely on the fact that, well, we do this, and well, he is nice about this, or she is nice about that, when in actuality, you both have normalized something that is very toxic and unhealthy to the both of you. So today we're going to discuss certain things that will help you identify if your relationship is toxic, and in identifying that, what can you do to overcome it?
Right.
Because we, at the end of the day, we all, I believe, want to have meaningful and thriving relationships.
Exactly.
And sometimes the very people that want meaningful and thriving relationships, you don't realize you bring certain behaviors with you that still have you leading down the path of toxicity. And so we always attach resources, but I really wanted to stress the resources that are attached today. There is a toxic relationship quiz. There are 2 links. For those of you that are still analog, you want to do paper and pencil, you can go through and answer the questions, and then they'll show you how you can assess your results. Or you can do the digital quiz. It takes you through the 26 questions, and then it shows you where you land, where your score would be. It's not, I don't believe it's going to give you a numeric score because, of course, we took the test. We always want to make sure we're doing what we're putting out there to you guys. And it asks some really poignant questions. Some of those will kind of hit on today, or shall I say, statements that you have to answer to. All right. Also, we have on there one of the references, or two of the references we're using: 5 ways to know you're in a toxic relationship and 4 ways to overcome that toxic relationship. All
That's it.
right. And so, as we talk about toxic relationship, in essence, toxic relationships are abusive in nature. And when we think about the word abuse, the definition of abuse is to treat a person or animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly and repeatedly. I mean, don't get me wrong. No one is going to give a pass to someone who's mistreating someone or is cruel to someone. But I do think it does kind of amp up the whole situation when there's a pattern, it's regular, and it is repeated. Would you not say?
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Awesome. So we're going to go get started. As we always tell you guys, if you want to come on in the living room, who dares to come into the living room? And let me just say this: we'll take care of you in the living room.
That's
We're
right.
not going to attack you in the living room. We're going to let you tell your truth. And let me just say this, especially when it comes to this topic, somebody could be freed from your testimony. And
Amen.
we're not saying you have to share your testimony, but the Bible says it. We overcome by the testimony
Mm-hmm.
of those of us who want to testify about how we got over. And so I just want to welcome you to that. This is a safe place where you can do that. Uh, I know as far as we're concerned, it's a judgment-free zone. We're not here to judge
That's
anyone
right.
or your relationships. However, we're just here. We seek to engage and empower our
Amen.
listeners. All right.
Amen.
So, the first sign you know what? Before I tell you the first sign, I want you guys, like I say, the educator in me can't help but to prompt you. Um, Drop some things that you believe are indicators of a toxic relationship. When you think about what it looks like, we're going to
Mm.
give you the overarching, but just in day to day life, if you were interacting with someone who told you about something, or you've observed a relationship, what was it about that made you say, there's something not quite right about that? That's unhealthy. And that's the word we used to use a lot. Healthy
Mm.
relationships, unhealthy relationships. But now the terminology toxic relationships is what's common. And I think it's good that that word is used, because I think unhealthy almost coats it a little bit to where you're just thinking, okay, it just needs to be healthier. But toxic signifies that this thing is slowly killing you,
Right.
whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. It has you bound. And so, what would you guys say are indicators of a toxic relationship? Where are our people here? All right, I'm looking for my peeps. We usually have someone coming right on in and talking to us and telling us how you feel about things. All right, babe.
Yes.
If you had to, I know you know what this discussion is about,
Mm-hmm.
but when somebody says to you toxic relationship,
Mm-hmm.
what comes to mind? Not just so much what it is, but what does that look like to you?
Well, when I hear that, I instantly think it is pretty much always combative, whether
Okay.
it's emotional, whether it's verbal, or whether it's physical. It's combative, and so for me, that would be a clear indicator that there's some toxicity in this relationship.
All right. And when you say combative, you're referring to combative in what way? I guess that's the
Again, verbally, physically, emotionally.
okay.
Um, I mean, there's always conflict.
Okay.
There's always some major issue going on in the relationship. There's always a level of dissatisfaction. That's toxic because that's not normal. You
Right.
know, no matter what is done, still there's no happiness. There's no
Right.
peace.
And I'm so glad you said something about that's not normal, because here's what I've learned is that and it's in the intro, we have it there many times. if all you've known is toxic relationships, let's say
Mm-hmm.
from very young, all you've done is observe them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you've been in them, you really start to have a general feeling that
This is normal.
it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is the most dangerous thing is when there's a level of comfort in the toxicity, like being comfort in the poison.
Right.
And so you have a less chance of fixing it or getting out of that situation because it's comfortable. Or here's the other thing that tends to happen sometimes when you are in a healthy relationship, you sabotage it with toxicity because something doesn't quite seem right. So therefore, you have to like churn it. You know, you got to, how people say you got to stir it up a little bit in order to
Mm-hmm.
cause some issues. But in essence, one of the signs of toxic behavior is, believe it or not, denying your intuition. Psychology
Mm-hmm.
Today has an article about this, and I thought it was an excellent article. And basically, people always talk about don't deny your gut. Like when you have a gut feeling that something is not right in your relationship, and you're trying to talk yourself out of it, or you second guess yourself because
Mm-hmm.
maybe you want the relationship to work so bad. And let me just go ahead and put this disclaimer out here. Um, I'm not saying that one thing in particular means the relationship is toxic. You could have some toxic aspects of your relationship
Mm-hmm.
that need to be addressed and tweaked. But I will say this, as we always talk about those 4 A's, if you have abuse, abandonment, adultery, addiction, those things definitely breed or a result of something that has been toxic for quite some time.
We call it gut in the world,
Mm.
but in the spiritual realm, it's called the Holy
The
Spirit is
Holy
telling you
Spirit.
something. And unfortunately, because in a lot of cases, just because we can't prove it at the time that we feel whatever we feel, we'll talk ourselves out of it and we'll keep pressing forward. And the stop sign is the flags are still going up.
Oh,
You know, just because you don't see the cliff yet doesn't mean the
mm-hmm.
cliff isn't there.
Right. And
You
let's
know,
let's be quite honest. You know, just as a woman, I'm not saying men don't do this, but women tend to do this a lot. It's like you finally think you got the right one, and
hmm
it's like you don't want the fallout. You don't want y'all broke up already, or you're in another relationship, girl. You can't keep a man, and feeling like I must hold on because you've taken the oh, that's why it's so important to have this conversation, because you've taken that statement of relationships are hard or relationships are work to another level. They're work simply because you're two different human beings
right.
with from different backgrounds, different perceptions, and sometimes different, beliefs and value systems,
hmm
especially when you first get to know one another. But at the end of the day,
It's not supposed to be dysfunctional.
it's not supposed to be dysfunctional. And
Right.
you go back to your core values, and if your core values are being challenged, or how can we say it, that person is crossing the lines as it relates to what you believe is acceptable and
Right.
unacceptable, then do not deny the Holy Spirit, your gut, your intuition that's
Don't
saying,
move your boundaries because you want a relationship.
don't move your boundaries because you want a relationship.
If
You
you have healthy boundaries, that's what they're there for. They're there as a caution. They're there to as a warning sign. Like when somebody starts coming close to your boundaries, you have to start saying, okay, and especially after you've expressed yourself to this individual and say, this is a boundary. Don't cross this line.
right,
But they keep
right,
teetering and tottering right there by that boundary.
right,
You know, I you cannot take that for granted and don't overlook it or downplay it or
right,
whatever because it,
right.
it it never ends well when
And
we do that.
let me say this for those of you who are like, what in practically, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're in a relationship with that person, and this is for the man or the woman.
Mm-hmm.
He's shoving you, or pushes you, or things start to become physical. Well, he didn't hit me. Well, he didn't actually punch me. Well, he's never done that before. Well, it was because I started to upset him. When you start doing those things like that, you're kind of denying what you know inside is not right. Not even kind of. That's exactly what's happening. So it could manifest itself in that way, and it could manifest itself in more subtle ways, which leads us right into number 2, baby. What's number 2?
Number two is gaslighting.
Have mercy. This is a word that I've been hearing a whole lot more here recently, and I remember I was reading the history behind that word. But when you are basically, it's easy to doubt yourself if somebody's gaslighting you. Basically, trying to make you feel as if what is true really is not true. Like, no, that's not happening. It's almost like on a most basic, simple level. Um, you're saying that is it like cold in here to you? Well, maybe temperature is not a good example. Something that's obvious
Right.
to one person, like, do you see that light on up there? Do you see that light flickering? Nope, it's not flickering. Everything looks fine to me. It has not flickered not one time. And then you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm just seeing things. And then it flickers. It continues to flicker. You're seeing it flicker, but they are telling you it is not flickering. That is what gaslighting does. When that person starts to engage in behavior with you, and you could be that person. I'm saying it like this random person, but it could be you as well. So do that self-analysis as well, that there's something happening and they're trying to tell you differently, which then calls you to do number 1, which is deny yourself. Or should I say,
Doubt.
deny or doubt
Yeah.
your own intuition about what you know to be true. And what will start to happen is, and this is one of the ways it looks like, and you can expound on this in a minute if you like, um, keeping you away from your family. And when you're away from your family and your friends, the people who would say, that don't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about that's not quite right. Something about her, something about him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to be gaslighted when there are not people there telling you no. Your
You're
gut
right.
feeling, you're right.
Right.
You have the right to be concerned. You have the right to hesitate.
My favorite example of that is when somebody lies on you to you.
When they lie on you,
To
to
you.
you,
Right. They looking you in the
please
face, telling
do
you
speak.
did something that you know you didn't do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you be like, and if they keep sounding convincing long enough, you'll go, did I do that? Then after a while, you be like, I didn't do,
I
that is one of my favorite examples of gaslighting. It's like, man, I know good and well, and people will do that because they're trying to manipulate the situation and they do not want to take responsibility for whatever has happened in that moment.
right, and it really is a dangerous place to be.
It's psychology,
To
reverse psychology.
That's why I always think everyone should have confidants, because the
Hmm.
Bible talks about that. Seeking wise
Wise counsel.
counsel,
That's right.
not just seeking counsel. It's like, child, let me just tell you this just so
Mhm.
I can feel good about myself. Don't get me wrong. Some people do that because you just for that moment you need to feel good. However,
Hmm.
what's most important is when it comes to serious matters, matters with relationships, matters with decision making, matters that is going to affect your lives and the lives of others, you need people that are going to tell you the truth.
The
And
absolute
when you
truth.
think about it,
Hmm.
um, if you constantly stay in a situation where the only voice that you're hearing outside of your own is the very person that is manipulating you or gaslighting you, it is no wonder that over time, your ability to trust your own self
Well,
starts to erode.
that's right.
And you start to be like kind of susceptible to
Hmm.
anything that this individual says.
And
So,
that's the whole plan of gaslighting. It is to get an individual to doubt themselves and trust more in their ability to diagnose them than their own ability.
right.
That's what
There
that
is
is.
in the
The
toxic
right, the
individual.
toxic individual. That's the whole
Definitely.
purpose of it.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
and let me just tell you something. I have witnessed that, and it's a dangerous thing because once you have, and that's one of the things you guys will see in the quiz, trying to control like what you do, what you wear, what you say, how you act, who you can interact with. I mean, it literally gets to the point, and how they put it. You feel like you're walking on eggshells. Like
Hmm.
I can't even do anything without this person manipulating. Then that's a indicator of toxic behavior,
Right.
and you have to make an assessment. Does this toxic behavior happen repeatedly? And is it accompanied with some of these other things that we're going to mention?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's something that you need to really check. All right, number 3. The third one would be intermittent reinforcement. I thought these two words, when I read this, I was like, you know what? I love the way they put those two things together. Intermittent, which means on and off, but it continues to happen over
Mm-hmm.
and over. It's like a push pull. Basically, at one minute they're tearing you down, and then the next minute they're building you up.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is in the tear down, you're not feeling good about it. You know it's not right. You know you don't like the way it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side of it, they start to build you up because it's like, wait a minute, I can't make him or her think that I don't care. And sometimes in oft times it is a dysfunctional thought process from the person who is the one that's being abusive, because it's like, oh my goodness, what did I do? What have I done? I don't want to lose them. So they go and do whatever they can to patch it up. Many times that can happen after physical abuse or something emotional that has taken place that was devastating,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be cheating or, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You mean the world to me. What would I do without you? I don't want to live without you.
Right.
Y'all,
Right.
that sounds real cute in a movie. I don't want to live without you. However, comma,
Mm.
as I think about my husband, I don't want him to lose his life. I mean, we know we're mortal beings. At some point that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not thinking to myself in this age, in my level of maturity, I don't have it all figured out. But I'm not thinking I'm not going to live if he no longer lives.
Mm.
I'm going to have a hard time because I've lost someone that I love dearly,
Right.
and we've built a life together, and I'm going to be devastated, and I'm going to need the support of my friends, my family, maybe even therapy. However, once you start to hear some dialogues that are not just people saying it, but like, I can't live without you and without you here, because then that can snowball
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
into something much more dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
much more cynical, and can be threatening to your life. Were you going to say something, baby?
No, no, I'm just agreeing with you. Those things are very, very important for people to understand. Even when we are grieving, people will swear, I'm not going. I can't live without you, and then I'll always ask 2 3 days later, you still living? It hurts,
Yeah.
but you're still living. You know what I'm saying? It bothers us deeply, but we don't. God is the sustainer of life,
Right.
not another human being.
And you know what? What you just said there, here's what I truly believe. When you are going through something, many times pressure changes things if you're not rooted and grounded and have the support of
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
because there are people who under normal circumstances can process something and get through something, but everybody has that thing or those things that once you become emotional or lose control of your emotions, I'm not
Yep.
just going to say emotional, because God has given us emotions and for a reason. We need to be empathetic towards individuals and sympathetic towards individuals. But once you lose control of your emotions, then sometimes you end up not making good choices. You end up getting to the point where you don't know which way is left, which way is right, because it has shaken you at your very core.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. You said I'm not gonna say emotional. God gave us emotions. He didn't say become emotional. Emotional denotes that you are now relying totally on how you feel. You see what I'm saying? We can have emotions. Nobody's saying don't cry. You know what I'm saying? If you hurt, nobody's saying don't. But when we're saying emotional, that means you have taken it a notch higher than it should be taken in a given situation.
Well, babe, I beg to differ with you just on one part of that, because I just believe that word emotional is a form of the word emotion or emotions. For example, if you, God forbid, you found out one of your loved ones passed away, Jimmy has become emotional. Like right now, he's emotional. He can't talk on the phone right now. So emotional is just a form of that word. It doesn't mean as if like, it doesn't denote that you have now, your emotions have taken over everything. I think loss of control of your emotions is different, but you can become emotional during a situation. Go ahead and read your definition, honey. I see you got it. I actually was going to pull it up for you, but you beat me to the
Having
punch.
feelings that are easily excited and openly displayed. That's emotional.
Right.
Easily
Okay.
excited. In
Okay.
other words, they're out of control.
All right.
That's the one that we're referring to.
I'm so glad you said that because there are three definitions here.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is relating to a person's emotions.
Right.
The second one is arousing or characterized by intense feeling,
Mm-hmm.
which is what someone would have if they lost a loved one. As a matter of fact, on here they say an emotional speech.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the people to think that just because you become emotional, that automatically you're irrational. Although loss of control of your
And that,
emotions
yes.
in your emotional state can cause irrationality.
So in
Do you
in
follow?
context, that's what I was referring to. So when
If you say so,
when
baby.
you become emotional to the point where you've taken it a notch higher, that's what I'm referring
That
to.
now that makes sense to me. And but we have to honor the fact we couldn't put a blanket statement out there about the word emotional. So there are different ways to look at that. But yes, you cannot lead with that, especially in times of like when you're dealing with a toxic relationship and decisions have to be made, or even if it's not toxic,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to, as they say, put on your big girl drawers or put on your big boy drawers and make it happen. But I do believe that emotional side of us is necessary to show empathy towards one another.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so go ahead, baby, it's on you. What would be
The
the next
next
one
one will
there?
be social isolation. And that you mentioned that earlier. You brought that up earlier. That's when this person tends to keep you away from your support group or, keep you away from your family, your friends. They only keep you to themselves. That's social isolation.
They don't want you to hang out with your friends.
Right.
Where are you going?
Don't gather any other opinions other than the ones
Right.
I've given
When are you coming back? Or they show up when you're hanging out with your friends
you.
because they're trying to make sure, they're not that you're not doing anything. And I think along with this we
Or
can
other influences.
or other influences.
Hmm.
Who's in your ear?
Right.
What are they telling you? And they tend to have this thing of feeling like everybody's talking about them or feel as if it's us against them kind of thing.
Right.
And embedded within that social isolation, some of the way it might look is jealousy
Hmm.
and feeling as if you want to spend more time with them than you want to spend with me, and or who else is out there that you're trying to see, and like basically sowing seeds with no justification for it, and it's just simply you just want that balance in your life.
Right.
It's not just that person in your life, but you have your family,
You have
you
your
have your
friends.
friends, you have
Hmm.
your work life,
You have
you
your
have
church.
you
You
have
have
your
yeah.
church. And the minute you socially isolate someone, I mean, just even the psychology of and this goes into some deep dark stuff, but what is that syndrome called when
Stockholm's.
Stockholm syndrome.
Hmm.
Stockholm. That's what I was trying to remember. Even in cases where there's an abductor and the abductee, that is in essence a type of relationship that can start to build
Hmm.
over time. They have been socially isolated from everyone that loves them, cares for them, thinks with reasoning, can pour into them. And so now they can literally start to become so entranced with their abductor that they don't even run or flee when they have an opportunity to, because that's how strong that power is that they have over you once you give into it. And
Hmm.
and I can only imagine, for people who've been through that type of thing. But when they try to socially isolate you, sometimes they'll be like, girl, he loved him some me, you know, or, she's the type of woman I don't ever have to worry about her because she's always up under me. And that's cute. And that's fine. And that could be healthy where you guys just enjoy being around each other that much. However, if one person is really wanting to spend some time with someone else, rightly so, a friend, a family member, I want to go out to brunch, and it's not something that has gotten in the way of the relationship,
Hmm.
and that's what they want to do, and there's an issue, that would throw up a red flag.
It should.
It should throw up a red flag like, I don't know what's going on, but we need to discuss this, and we'll talk about a little bit later. How can you overcome it? I'm wondering what's going on with my usual people here. I'm looking for my peeps. Where are you at? We would love to hear from you guys if you're here. I know it's definitely posted up here. All right, but we're gonna keep it moving because once we're done, we're gonna give you the fifth sign of toxic behavior, and then we're gonna talk about ways to overcome a toxic relationship. All right, number 5, feeling like you just can't be yourself.
Hmm.
And when I say just can't be yourself, I'm not um I'm not saying that in being yourself there's not room for growth for all of us, right? So, because sometimes people like to use the excuse, this is me, this is who I am. We're
Hmm.
not talking about that. We're talking about just the core, at the core of who you are. Whatever you do, it's as if it's challenged or it's addressed. It's like I don't know who to be because everyone who I'm trying to be, every time I manifest who I am, it's not good enough.
Right.
It's not it's not in alignment with this person's perception of how they want you to be. You guys see it all the time. People joke about women and Lifetime movies, and men watch Lifetime movies too. But you'll see that thing where, they seem to find the perfect guy and he's all into her. And then all of a sudden, there are things like, I want you to wear this dress. I want you to put on these shoes. I want you, you know what? I picked out your, I have a hairstylist I want you to go to. And there's nothing wrong with somebody flattering you with different things of that nature. But when it gets to the point where you're like, I don't even feel my authentic self because this person is projecting what they want me to be.
Right. I want you to wear this polka dot shirt. I like this polka dot shirt for you. I don't like polka dots.
And see, to me, saying I want you to wear,
I
I would
don't.
like for you to wear this polka dot shirt is one thing, but it's another thing how far they take it.
Well, my point exactly. That's
Right.
I'm using it as an
Yeah, but
example.
it's like, no, I don't want to wear that polka dot shirt. All right, that's cool. But if they get mad about the fact that you're not wearing this polka dot shirt,
Hmm.
or mad at the fact that you're not kind of following the path that they're trying to present for you, that's a problem because it's almost like they've assumed the role of a parent. And
Right.
even with parent, we shouldn't control our children. If anything, we're trying to show them the way. We put boundaries and parameters in place so that they can be safe and make good choices. But trying to navigate all those things, very, very dangerous. I did want to, before we move over to ways to overcome it, I did want to just mention some things um, to just keep in mind because, we don't know who's going to hear this, who we're talking to, but it just might be something that you hear that you're like, wow, I need to pay more attention to this, or I need to talk to my partner about this. Um, when someone is possibly exhibiting toxic behavior, they may not want you to be involved in different activities.
Hmm.
They might text you or call you all the time. Um, they might feel a type of way if you spend too much time trying to look good, like without their input. They
Mm.
might not like that, and you think to yourself, why would someone not want me to look good? Or they don't want you to express your thoughts
Mm.
and feelings, the very things that make up who you are. Or think about trying to have a relationship with someone and you have thoughts and feelings and you can never share them. Without a doubt, resentment is going to build
All the time.
all the time. Now, and that resentment can turn into so many things. You can implode or you can explode,
Hmm.
and neither is good. Both are super, super damaging. So, make you feel like you can't do anything right. Whatever you do is just not good enough.
Right.
Here's a biggie. We talked about them trying to hurt you, but saying things like, I'm going to hurt myself if you don't,
Right.
or I'm going to kill myself if you don't, or I'm going to take your car and bash in the windows. Toxic, toxic, toxic. So when you think about, on the extreme level, that should stand out to most individuals as this is some toxic behavior, and we need to go back and look and see what's going on.
Right. And unfortunately, all of those tactics are used when a person is trying to um, control you. I mean, those are all of the classic things that people do when they are, trying to control another person. So
Right.
it's these are things that will are indicators. Hey, this is a toxic relationship,
And
or this is a toxic person that's trying to make this a toxic
right.
relationship.
And I wonder if you guys
Right.
ever ask yourself the question, I know I have, why would someone want to control someone else? And the only viable answer I have is it's when they feel as if there's another part of their life they have no control over.
Mm.
And so they project that and or internalize it and project it onto you. Like, since I can't control this, whether it be my addiction or my need to do this or my need to do that or the void that I have from
Mm.
childhood, whatever the case may be, then if I can control you, then everything's going to be okay. But as we know, it never works. It never works, whether it's husband to wife, boyfriend to girlfriend, parent to child. Because even those children, they grow up.
That's right.
And when they grow up, oh Lord help us all.
They
They
don't return.
they
But look,
yeah, they do their own thing.
we've mentioned the things that will identify a toxic relationship. We talked about denying your intuition. These are 5 signs of toxic behavior in a relationship. Okay. And we talked about gaslighting. We talked about intermittent reinforcement. We've talked about social isolation, and we've talked about feeling like you can't be yourself. Now, mind you, there are a lot of more things on this list.
Right.
There's
I
a
would say those are the main ones,
right. Well,
under which.
those were the ones that we picked out. But based on whatever scenario someone is in, they could deem it being something else. But you know, we don't want to make this a show of doom and gloom, because if you are someone who finds or feels that you may be in a toxic relationship, we want to also empower you with 4 ways to overcome a toxic relationship,
All right.
because we do believe in solutions and resolution. You know, and that is one of the things that I think we should never ever lose sight of. Finding, always searching for a solution or a resolution to anything that we're dealing with.
And
All
if you
right.
guys would like to read the article that goes along with this by Dr. Jill Weber, um, that resource is the one that we put
Yeah, that's
on this.
assigned in the description.
Yeah, it's in the description, so you'll see it there. And the first one, which is pretty straightforward,
Mm.
admit the relationship is toxic.
Right.
I mean, it almost seems like it's like duh, but it's not duh, because there are so many smoke screens and
Right.
distractions and I always say variables. Somebody can look at someone else in a relationship and say, doesn't she see that? Doesn't he see that? How can you be so blinded to it? Well, if you're dealing with somebody who they might have some insecurities as it
Hmm.
relates to,
A bunch of, like you
yeah,
said, factors.
factors like why they're in that relationship or
Hmm.
why they're tolerating that
Right.
or why they continue to allow themselves to go through that. So first you got to admit it. And if you're married, see, now let me just say this. Um, if you're in a toxic relationship and you're not married, and you're in a toxic relationship and you're married, there's something there that's very different. The
Hmm.
one where you're married, you've made a covenant. However, the path that you take can be very detrimental, because you could very well have children involved and you have made that covenant.
Hmm.
You're not married. You can make that transition a little bit easier if everybody continues to say to go their separate ways. However, once you admit that the relationship is toxic,
Hmm.
if it's you that realizes that, then you have to go and have a conversation about um, what's happening in the relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, for example, if it was me and you,
Hmm.
and I felt as if this relationship is toxic, and I bring it to you, it is detrimental. I'm listening to see, do you agree? Are we on the same page?
Hmm.
Because if we're not on the same page, what that means is one person is committing to, or at least has committed to the awareness of, there's a problem.
Right.
If there's no problem, then there's nothing to fix. and the toxicity continues.
Right. Well, 'cause we both have to be able to identify
You
that there's
both
an
have to be
issue.
able to identify it.
Because if, again, no change will come if there is no understood problem.
That's right. And so just because you're married and it might be toxic, if both individuals are willing to do the work to remove those toxic behaviors,
Hmm.
your marriage could still not just survive it, but thrive
I
through
wanted
it.
to put a slash in this one earlier, but I didn't. It was like
Okay.
admit the relationship is toxic slash admit my role in the toxicity.
Okay.
Because sometimes we can only identify the other person's toxic behavior and
Hmm.
we don't recognize our own. And sometimes when we are coming to a person like this relationship is toxic, we're not saying, you know what, I realize that I'm doing some toxic stuff. I'm only talking about your toxic stuff.
Sometimes people
You
do
know,
that. And
and
I
so
think
yeah,
in navigating that, once your relationship has gotten to the point that it's toxic, clearly you're struggling navigating through that with just the two of you.
right.
You probably would want to get someone else in there, wise counsel, whether it be your pastor,
Hmm.
a counselor, a therapist, or what have you, to get in there to help you unpack it. Because especially the longer you've been in that situation,
Hmm.
there's a lot to unpack that may require you having the therapy by yourself,
Hmm.
the other individual having the therapy by themselves, and then you guys coming together. But that would be a lot to unpack. But yes, I totally agree with you. Everybody in that situation has to be able to identify their part in it in admitting that it's toxic.
Okay.
All right, what's
N-
number two?
Number two, stop thinking it's the best you can do.
That relationship.
Hmm.
This is the best you can do. Sometimes I kind of touched on it before of staying in something because you don't want to. I've worked so hard.
Yeah.
I've invested, 4 years in this relationship. And
Or um, you may have experienced in your younger years someone telling you you'll never, nobody will ever love you.
right,
Nobody will
right.
ever want
And I
you.
finally found somebody
Right.
who understands me and who loves me. So,
Or just have accepted me or
or
tolerates
right,
me.
tolerates me
Right.
if you convince yourself.
Hmm.
And so you kind of get panicked and thinking like, "Oh my goodness, if I do this, is it going to disrupt that?"
Right.
And now I'm going to, the last thing I want to be, and we've never really talked about this in great detail, but I think fear of being lonely.
Oh, we have talked
Notice
about that.
fear of being lonely?
Yes,
Okay. Because I'm not going to say fear of being alone, because just because you're alone doesn't mean you're lonely.
exactly.
And I'm going to speak out there for even, I was once single at some point, and I know single people have an issue with that
Some
other
single
people
people.
that other people think that just because they're alone, they're lonely.
Right.
No,
Right.
there are some single people who are totally okay, lots
Right.
of them, with being alone.
Right.
And so, but with that fear, and we always go back to, I know we've talked about fears. You should lead with love and not with fear. So
Hmm.
even if you're in a toxic relationship and that person does not want to work on that, you channel into love, the love that you have for God, and the love for yourself,
Hmm.
to where
Hmm.
you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to allow myself to what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
Or better yet, what am I willing to sacrifice just to have this relationship?
exactly.
Am I willing to give up my my being or my identity just for this person to be with me? So yeah, we have to really really be careful when we're talking about how we're
Yeah,
viewing this particular one. Stop thinking
that's
it's the
right.
best you can do.
All right, I see you, Gloria. Gloria said, "Say it." So thank you for confirming what I was talking about with young people. Just because you're alone, don't mean you're lonely.
Hello, Miss
All
Miss
right,
Rogers. Melanie
how
Rogers
you
is
doing,
back.
Melanie?
I don't know
But
her, but her last name says a lot.
he always feels that way when he sees that. But yeah, and I always, last week I think we mentioned the demon of
Well,
companionship
yep,
and
that demon is
how
there.
just because you feel like, oh my gosh, I think first of all, let's be clear. From the beginning of, when God created the earth, he was like, he didn't want Adam to be alone.
Hmm.
And so he wanted him to have someone. So when I say demon and companionship, it's not that I'm saying that companionship is a bad thing. But when I say demon, it's that demon that manipulates you or has you thinking that you must have a companion in that way
Right.
in order to be satisfied,
Well, look,
and the things you tolerate.
put it like this: the demon of companionship makes you believe you got to have anyone as a companion.
Okay. There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
There it is.
anyone.
It makes you think anyone, any old person will do, and
Right.
you start. If y'all can, you start to rationalize. Well, he got a good job.
Mhm.
Um, he's a nice looking man, and I'm gonna go there. He can put it down in the bedroom, and you definitely got to have that. But see, you got to be very mindful, and we talked
Mm.
about that. Even that will cloud your
That's
judgment.
right.
And so you gotta, I always go back to knowing your worth.
Hmm.
And what that means is even alone, it should not depreciate your value
Exactly.
because you stand alone.
Hmm.
All right. And
Hmm.
if anything, as you stand alone and you continue to take care of yourself and pour into yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way where God is guiding you through that process, and you find somebody else
Hmm. Well, the
that,
deal is when
mm-hmm,
you're pouring into yourself, you're trying to get to the point where you are 100.
that's right.
So you can meet the other person that's 100, and
That's
now you
right.
all will have a whole relationship.
Surplus,
So
right?
we're not referring to a person that's being selfish
Right.
or self-serving. We're not talking about that when we say pour into yourself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we misunderstand what it means to pour into yourself. If you don't have a healthy idea or
Right.
understanding of who you are
Mm-hmm.
and where you need to grow, your areas of
Mm-hmm.
growth, anyone can manipulate you.
Right. And I'm glad you stopped there because I feel impressed to talk about this just for a second. And it self-care, I don't think is selfish at all. It has the word self in it, but you can't be of any good to anybody else if you're not of any good to yourself.
Right.
And I'm talking to the mothers, specifically the single mothers out there who get into a realm of you're so busy. I got to do what I got to do for my children.
Hmm.
I'm pretty much holding it down on my own. And I'm not saying there are not single fathers out there. Shout out to them as well. Shout out to anyone who's been left to kind of hold it down. And what starts to happen is your identity becomes wrapped around the fact that, and your sense of value
Hmm.
starts to become wrapped around the fact that you're taking such good care of your family and your children that you start to sacrifice yourself
Mm.
and your own basic, what's going on, Betty, and your own basic core needs. And so that's why self-care is so important. So if Rachel doesn't take care of Rachel, Rachel can't take care of Jimmy,
Hmm.
Rachel can't take care of these kids, Rachel can't do anything efficiently if Rachel hasn't made sure that I'm tip top. All
Exactly.
right. I'm
Exactly.
wondering if our people, y'all tell me, are y'all just seeing us? Because I see them all jumping in right now. Just drop in the chat if y'all are just seeing us, because we've been on for about 50 minutes now. So we want to make sure, of course, you can always go back and watch the rebroadcasting of this. It's some good stuff we talked about. But just let us know that. Number 3,
Hmm.
let me go back to what the intro said. I talked about toxic relationships, toxin, poison. Well, if you've been toxified, you need a detox.
Hmm.
And when we talk about detox, I'm not talking about those things you're drinking to flush out your system. We're talking about an emotional detox,
Yeah.
a
Right.
mental detox, sometimes a
Spiritual.
spiritual detox,
Yeah.
and that can manifest itself in even physically detoxing from the way you've been normally even carrying yourself.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
let's say what that looks like in a marriage. In a marriage, it might be so bad, and the Bible talks about this, that you might have to separate for a time.
Right. And while
You
you're
know,
separated, you all are actually working to
right?
reunite.
You're not just
You're
separating
right.
like
You're right. Let's get,
I
we need
just
some
we
space.
need some space to let me get away from
No,
this
no, no,
person.
no.
Meanwhile, you're entertaining other people
Right.
and texting other people and or
No,
or
that's not
just
what we're
like, and
referring
I'm
to.
not gonna deny how it might feel. I've been in a place where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't get out of this situation. Like I don't feel okay if this person doesn't just get out of my whole entire space for
Hmm.
a period of time. I'm not talking about that. That might be an initial feeling that you have, but literally, I value this relationship enough to save whatever might be left of it and whatever can grow from it.
Right.
So let's go our separate ways. Let's have a plan in place. Let's at least stop fussing enough to have a plan in place just seeing y'all for about 7 minutes. That's what I thought, guys, because let me tell you something. I said, our people usually chime in. I had not been hearing from y'all, and I was going to have my husband check the technicals, but
I checked everything. It was live on Facebook, so I don't know why certain people wasn't seeing it.
all right, well, y'all just going to have to listen. This is what y'all need to do. When you go back to the rebroadcast, y'all keep the conversation going. Y'all keep talking about it because we've been talking about some really good stuff that I would have loved to have heard you guys input about. But yes, you have to. You might have to be a part. All right, and unfortunately, and if you notice, Jimmy and I, in whatever episode, whatever topic we're talking about, we always promote. We want marriages to thrive, not just survive.
Exactly.
We don't want marriages to break apart, but we must admit there are certain circumstances and situations where it happens. And in some of those situations, and a lot of the situations, God has given permission for. But I will say this, I would advise anyone who's going through in a relationship, if they're going through abuse of any kind, certainly my first concern for them is safety.
Right.
All right. But if they truly believe that the relationship is worth salvaging, then it's about once you are safe, where do you go from here? And are both individuals willing to do the work to make that relationship
And I'm glad you
healthy
said
again?
that. Both people have to believe the relationship is valuable.
That's right.
And I'm, and I know in the Christian community, we kind of say some stuff that don't make sense and is not spiritually supported
I will
either.
say some people, but go
You
ahead.
know, but both people feeling like the relationship is valuable will savage the relationship.
Right.
I could pray for Rachel all day long and pray for our marriage, but if she done made up in her mind and her heart, she ain't doing nothing else. I mean, that's gonna be a lose-lose battle,
Right.
And so, but when both of us, even though we may be emotional or high strung at the time, which will require us to kind of separate because it has gotten that toxic.
Right.
But in our separation, we have made a plan to work on whatever needs to be worked on individually as well as collectively so we can come back together.
And you might need a mediator to help you
Oh,
with
definitely.
that.
That's the only way that's
Right.
going to work.
And the
Because it's
mediator
quite clear you two can't do it on your own.
And
Right.
sometimes, you might also have to implement not verbally talking to each other, but through whether it be text or message or
Yeah,
once the mediator gets in the mix.
right. Because
That's
sometimes
how-
we don't know how to communicate with each other once
But
emotions have gone.
there has to be some sort of a detox, a purging.
Right.
Because anything that's toxic will kill you either slowly or quickly.
That's right.
All right. All right. And then the last one, give us what's the fourth way to overcome a toxic
The
relationship.
fourth way to overcome a toxic relationship is to seek growth, invest in yourself. And so I like this one because when you seek growth, that means first you've self-analyzed. You've decided, you know what? Here's an area in me that needs to change, that needs to grow.
Right.
So maybe I do need to go speak to someone one-on-one.
Right.
Because, and this is something that I often say to people. Too often we want co-conspirators when actually you need to be looked at by yourself. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we don't want to admit how much we need to talk to someone by ourselves. And I typically like to use patterns of behavior to prove that to a person. So if you've been in 5 relationships in the last 2 years, it can't be the 5 people because you chose them. So somewhere along the line, it's something.
Yeah, it could be some things about that other person. However, I think to your
Right.
point, what is it about your decision making as it relates to
your energy, all of that stuff.
Yeah, the energy that you're putting out there, and who you're either attracting or who you're either entertaining
drawn to
and entertaining in conversation. Because there's some people out there who mean no good. They come across as if they're on the up and up, and they stuff stink, you know. And to be quite honest, to some degree, all our stuff stinks because we are not. Bless your heart. Get your water, baby.
I don't know what's going on here.
Y'all, let me tell y'all something. This happens. The corona pops up
You're so stupid.
every and I'm joking around, and this is not to lessen anybody who has corona or has dealt with that, but this cough comes and it might be because you're talking too much. You think that's what it is?
It could be.
So you might
So
need to
you
moist.
should be
You
strangling.
no, I'm straight. I'm straight. You might need to drink a gallon of water before we get started.
Well, that might be dang.
That might be it because and you know I do talk for a living, so I know how to pause, you know, and come back in and give my throat a rest. But with that being said, the point. What was the point I was making, honey?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! Did he just me? But yeah, I think we were going back to what you're attracting and what you're
Right.
you really do have to be mindful of that and be careful of that because people always bring their best selves. That's what they
The
present.
representative.
They bring their representative.
Yeah.
But the question is who are they really? And based on who are they really, is it unhealthy? Is it toxic? And the part of them that you don't like are those things that are non-negotiables.
And let me reiterate something here about
Mm-hmm.
these four ways to overcome a toxic relationship. Make them personal. Make them personal. Make this an internal thing. So I will admit that we are in a
Right.
toxic relationship. I will stop thinking it's the best that I can do. I know I need to go detox. You know, I may have to accept being apart from this person that I love for a minute until I get
Right.
myself together.
Right.
I need to seek growth and invest in
Right.
myself. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? And the reason that that is so important is because once we start internalizing or making it personal,
Right.
we take the focus off the other person and look for our own areas of
Because
growth.
I what I always say is you carry you to the next relationship.
That's it.
However, whatever other baggage that you got as a result of the relationship, if you have not resolved that, goes with you. I want to quote the doctor in Psychology Today, Dr. Weber. She
Mm.
said something so deep. For those of you who are single, you know, you were in a relationship or were married and you're out of it. When you do date, thoughtfully consider those who you have gone for before, like we mentioned, and work to engage new and different types of personalities.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you're like, oh, he's not my type, or she's not my type. Well, it could be that maybe your type wasn't what should have been your type. But the
Mm.
other part is a strong, immediate attraction can sometimes mean trouble ahead for a relationship.
Amen.
Hold back and wait a few beats. This tactic will help you avoid another disappointing relationship. And that affirmed me in one way because for those of you who heard our story of when we first started dating, when we went on that first date, we went out.
Oh, it was a date now.
Oh my
Because you told me it
gosh.
wasn't a date. This is not a date.
Okay, when
I
we
was like,
went
whatever
on
you want to
that
call it.
first not date, and I hesitated. I don't know if you caught the hesitation. I almost didn't say it because I knew you were going to go there.
'Cause I knew it
But
was a date.
whatever you want to call it,
It was a date.
at that time you didn't say it was a date. You said, "Oh, it's not a date,"
No,
because you didn't
I
want to turn me
said
off.
it's whatever you want it to
There
be.
we go.
That's
So
what I
you
said.
didn't even confirm it yourself. So the first time we went to that, whatever you want to call it, I enjoyed my conversation with him. It was engaging, but like I remember being present at that time,
Mhm.
I didn't feel it wasn't like I was like, whoo, like I'm just taken, I'm lightheaded, I can't think, all I can think about. But that wasn't a bad thing. Even at
Mhm.
that time, I felt like it was a good thing because I was very focused and very clear. That's what it was. My mind was clear and not so taken by him that I couldn't really be clear about what's going on. Gloria, he doesn't know how to behave. And I just ask y'all to just pray for me. Just pray for me. That's all I can say. But gosh, I hate that, you know, there was something in my shanana that told me our people are not here. They're not seeing us. Did you feel that at all, or you just
Honestly, when I checked the feed, when I went to Facebook and I saw it streaming on Facebook, I was like, well, maybe they're busy,
Because I was going to stop and tell you something. And then, but I didn't want you to be like, Rachel, everything's fine. The technology is fine. And I hate it. She knows the truth. It was a date. But you just said, okay, we're not gonna belabor that. So the 4 ways to overcome a toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
One, admit the relationship is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Gloria. Admit that the relationship is toxic and the part that you played in that toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also put in there, when you have that discussion with the individual, make sure that they're willing to rectify the toxic relationship. Number two, stop thinking it's the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Don't talk yourself to stay into it if it's something you can easily get out of.
Right.
Three, detox. All right. So whether that be apart for a period of time, and during that period of time, you're not like, woo, it's a party. It's, you know what? There were some things that did not go right. I'm not even in a good state to be uh, um a good date for somebody else anyway. Like
Right.
if you left that relationship to go date someone else, what are you now presenting
Right.
to the next person?
Exactly.
All right. And if you're married, you have to get some intervention in there to help you guys work through those patches. And then four, seek growth. That part right there, to me, if I had to say my mantra in life as it relates to my personal life, my professional life, it really is seeking growth.
Hmm.
Do I have it all figured out? No. But I do want to be able to look at my life day to day, like even that on a microscopic level, and say, have I grown? I may have done it yesterday, but did I do it today?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I don't do it tomorrow if it's something that doesn't serve me or serve the people that I love.
Mm-hmm.
What you got for us?
Actually, I think that was a very good one. I mean, do you want to do a closeout? Because I like when you do your closeout. You give that wonderful, warm thought at the end.
See,
So I got your
now
music
you put
playing.
pressure. I actually, what I just said,
Mm-mm.
you should have cued the music.
You was just recapping.
You cued the music too late.
No, you.
Well, let me just say this. I'm going
Here we
to tell
go.
you guys why I chose this topic, because I mean I'll be 50 this year, so I've lived a few years, not as long as some other individuals, but between just my own experiences, the experiences of people that I love, friends, family, and even because I have been teaching for 25 years on a high school level, I have the opportunity to even see the breeding ground and the seeds of toxic relationships being sown from a very early time. And then later on, see how it manifests itself. No relationship is worth just holding on to and surviving like that for the rest of your life because you think you have to. You have options, and your options, when you're going through these difficulties in your relationships, your options are to change. And if you don't know how to change, is to seek the help that you need in order to make those changes. Because what we can all agree to, between the pandemic, all of the civil unrest, injustices, the different varying political views and how it's affecting us, life is hard enough than to have the ones that are closest to you and the ones that you love or claim to love you. You're in a situation where it is so toxic that it is wearing away at your very soul. So let's make some better choices for ourselves and in our relationships. Was that suffice?
That was amazing.
I get the sense,
You nailed it.
and y'all can tell me, I get the sense of slight patronization or sarcasm.
No, seriously, I
Okay.
genuinely enjoy you doing your closeout at the end.
Yeah, without you doing this. Y'all, he tries to do this to me, like wrap up under the table. Do
Huh.
you ever see me doing that to you?
Yes.
Well,
Or you touch my leg.
yeah, praise the Lord.
Mhm.
So you do know that touching the leg means wrap it up. Yes, Lord. So I won't have to do this to you. I'll continue to touch the leg.
Guys, look, thank you all so much again for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. And honestly, we pray that you all got something out of this. And go back and watch the
Yes, go
rebroadcast
back.
for those of you who, for whatever reason, got this late. Because we don't
It looks like
understand.
everybody else, everybody
Right.
did.
It doesn't look like Facebook shared this out because it was playing live and we just don't know what
You
happened.
know what
So
I wonder?
I do apologize.
wonder if the topic, sometimes Facebook can be very sensitive about certain things, and maybe based on the topic, they wanted to see,
I
do
have
we want to release this?
I have no idea. But you know what, guys? Again, thank you all
Mm.
for tuning in. And as we usually say, we'll see you next week.
Have a good
Peace.
one, guys. Bye bye.